Good morning, good evening, good night. I can't believe that we are in the final full session before our finale quiz coming up after this. And it's session 13, talking all about YouTube, talking all about EdTech and lots of different things. So I cannot believe we're in session 13. I wrote at the top of my page for this one little notes towards myself. And this one I said, we got this, because I didn't know what I was going to be like at the very end of the day. But we do got this. It's been amazing having all the different learning experiences. And I'm so excited to continue the conversation during this time today. So let's get ourselves on the road. So yeah, like I said, we're back for session 13. And thank you, Ken Morrison. You've been here the whole way through and you just said you got this in the chat. So thank you for joining in. And it's been so cool to have people along the whole day of learning with me, people joining in and out throughout the sessions. And if you're catching up and you haven't taken part in any of the sessions yet, no problem, we got you. So we're going to just go through a little bit about what EE Conquest is and Empathetic Educators so you can catch up if you haven't taken part in it yet. So as part of all the day of learning, there's 12 hours of learning. It's action-packed with amazingness from all different people across the world. And you can find out more and catch up on the sessions at bit.ly/EEConquest 2021. And there, as part of the sessions, there's actually a guide to go along with it. So there's a digital guide, or you can print it out and have it as a physical space, because there's missions to complete that you can use and you can share with your community so that we can all learn together. So that's a really great takeaway that you can take away from that. And as part of this day, it is a completely free day of learning, but we are trying to raise money for such a fantastic cause called Youthline in New Zealand. And it's all about mental health and the mental health for the youth. So really, really would love if you can donate. That would be absolutely fabulous. Even $1, if there's 100 people taking part, that's $100, which is fantastic. So yeah, bit.ly/EE Youthline. Or even if you can't donate, connecting and letting people know about it and promoting it in your spaces, that'd be really, really great and appreciated. So we are going to do, without further ado, we're going to get our guests on the show and bringing us on. So we have David Lee and Georgina. How exciting.
Hello, guys.
Hey, guys.
So great to have you on board. And I'm really, really grateful to be able to share this space together today and talk about all the different takeaways. So we'll start off with what ignites your passion, what ignites and fuels your mission. Why do you do what you do? And a little bit about yourself. So where can we find you? And what do you have about yourself? So we'll start with you, Georgina.
Absolutely. So go ahead and bring in my flame. Awesome. Mm-hmm. So thank you. So as Naomi said, my name is Georgina. I'm currently working as Director of Learning Technology here in Amman, Jordan in the Middle East. And I also teach a few hours of creative media at the secondary level. And what drives me as an educator as well as a creative leader, what I'm passionate about most is curiosity. So how can we be a better educator? How can we become a better leader? And how might we then reimagine what education looks like? The impact that I'm really excited to hope to continue to build is driven from that imagination. So when we're able to spark that curiosity and keep that candle of curiosity burning, then we're going to ignite that design thinking across our communities, across education with students and leaders so that they can also continue to spark. And that gives them creative freedom. So giving them the choice and the voice to be able to share globally. From all of that, I hope to spark the future in education and support 21st century leaders. So it's really, really important that we help everybody in the education community understand that they are a leader. And I believe by giving them creative freedom to create that we'll be able to help spark that. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
Beautiful. I love the way your fire is going to spark some. I love it. Love that little analogy as well. Look at you go. And so David, do you want to let us know a little bit about your flame, a little bit about you, and letting us know, a little bit about you.
All right.
I'll just take Georgina off and I'll put on your one.
All right. So my name is David, and I'm the Design and Innovation Specialist at Singapore American School. I started as a computer teacher, then got into EdTech and then STEM. And now I focus on designing really empowering learning experiences. And so my passion is definitely empowerment. I get really excited. I get this adrenaline rush when I find that students and teachers, when they realize they could do something, initially they feel like they can't. That really motivates me. And I found that certain mindsets and practices have helped me, has empowered me as well. And so the impact is to equip not only students, but teachers with specific mindsets and skills. And then also equipping students with learning approaches and teachers with teaching approaches that are meaningful and can benefit them not only in the education system, but beyond that.
That's a little bit. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry. The difference is always the goal is to transform education from the traditional to what, in my belief, to be something that is actually useful for students and teachers, and to develop them into global citizens.
Didn't want to interrupt you again twice in a row, but no, I think it's so good, and I think it's what your process that you share really has inspired me. Like, because it's the process part of it as well. It's like understanding how you reflect on what you do, and then how you transfer that into your leadership and understanding people too. So yeah, such a great thing, and letting us know about it too. So Lua said, "Sparking the future is so important for every teacher to hear that they are capable of being a leader, and both of you inspire those different spaces too. So thank you so much for sharing those different things." And so the first question that we'll say, so this is all about innovation, all about YouTube, all about the technology that we can use going forward. So what's your biggest takeaway, David, from the YouTube journey that you've been on and the beyond, and how has that impacted you in your space?
Yeah. All right. I created a few slides for this topic.
There we go.
All right. So YouTube, it all started when in my first year of teaching, and I was always looking for resources, obviously, because I was a beginner, and I found Edutopia. Edutopia is a website that is just jam-packed with awesome best practices, not only for just outcomes, but also creating these meaningful experiences for students and teachers. But what I was drawn to was their YouTube channel, and they showcased so many innovative approaches that actually work, and their whole mission is to transform education in this way. And what I was really thrilled about when watching these were that they were really quick, easy to digest videos. So they will talk about a specific approach or a skill, and they will show real teachers and students going through the process. But that's it. It's not like a 20-minute video. It's about like a 3-minute video, and it just sparks the interest of the viewer. And for me, I watched a lot of videos about project-based learning, and that motivated me to try it out in my classroom. Because it wasn't 20 minutes and because it wasn't an hour of just intense instruction, it just sparked my curiosity and forced me to just try it out with some research. And it shows how the approaches work and how it works. And also it was very inspirational for me. Again, makes you have this bias towards action, actually doing it instead of just, constantly thinking about it. I was at a point where I was doing project-based learning and tech. And so I saw a lot of content about project-based learning or about tech integration, but I didn't see examples of both integrating. Not a lot, at least in my view. And so I wanted to create content for that and just share what I was doing in the classroom in that area. And then I moved into STEM and design thinking, and I wanted to showcase that as well. And so I created my YouTube channel. what's really exciting is I get to just talk about what I'm really interested in. And so here's an example of an innovative teaching approach, learning that transfers conceptual understanding. I get to showcase like real examples of STEM projects that sometimes involve design thinking, and just show it to teachers. And then I also can share my tech integration ideas, as well as just fun stuff like day in the life type of videos. So it allows me also to be very creative and be able to express myself. So here's my process. If any of you guys blog, video I think is the next step, because once you have a blog post, that's basically your script for your video. And that's also how it all started. But this is my process. Basically, I design these units and projects, and then I implement them. And during that process of implementing, usually I'm collaborating with a teacher. I'm just documenting everything. I'm not really thinking about what I want to communicate in the video in the future. I'm just documenting. I'm taking pictures. It helps to have an Instagram account where it forces me to take pictures. I get a lot of video using Google Photos. That really helps as well. And I also have a Sony A7C, and I'm just constantly documenting. Once the unit is done, then I look at what we did and look at the documentation that I've gathered and create the storyboard and outline, because a lot of times you want to share what you're doing in a storytelling way. And I use a sketchbook or a notebook, and I just kind of outline what the story would look like. Then I would create a video script, and I use Google Docs for that. And then video production, I use Final Cut Pro 10, but I used to also use iMovie as well. And I also use my phone, and there's a lot of apps for that. So this is kind of my process. So anytime you're teaching a unit, teaching a project, I just recommend documenting, and you'll have enough B-roll, enough footage to actually make a video. So why I make YouTube videos, and why I think a lot of teachers should try it out at least once. And I think why students should make YouTube videos as well, especially about their learning, is because it inspires others. When I first used design thinking a couple of years ago, I created a video that showcased, that told a story about how this first grade class was using design thinking. And I made it and I shared it with the teachers, and I shared it with the teacher, and then the teacher shared it with the parents, and the parents got a hold of it and started sharing it amongst them. And that kind of sparked this movement. The parent community actually wanted design thinking to happen in the classroom, and more teachers got on board. And so it is a great tool to inspire others, especially if you are trying to convince stakeholders that what you're doing is beneficial for the students. And so if you feel like curiosity is important in the classroom, if you feel like inquiry-based learning, those type of things, create that story through a video and show them, literally show them how it looks. A lot of times it's difficult for teachers to, and even in the parent community, to understand what that learning looks like, because it's so drastically different from what they grew up with. And I think it's a great tool. It's an easier way to convince people instead of just going up on stage and explaining, oh, this approach does this, this, and this. Videos are a bit more impactful. And also, like, inspiring others, I just want to go back to that again. For students as well, whatever they come up with, whatever they create in class, they need to also communicate that information. And the best way to do that is through story. to really have the viewers go through an emotional journey while they watch the footage, and really focus on the essence of the story, the why that that explains why your approach or whatever you're creating is valuable. And then the most important part for me is the reflection part. So after I do a project, because I'm making videos after the project, I'm reflecting on what worked and what didn't work. And so when I'm writing out the script, I can recognize, I make comments to say, oh, this part I needed work on next year. So a lot of my videos at the end, I say, okay, I did this project, but next year I hope to do this. And I didn't really have much time to do that at school, like during work. So when I'm making these videos for fun after school, at home, I actually sit down and reflect on my teaching and how it works. And so that's been really important. And also, when I want to convince other people to do the same project, I have to then really focus on why was it powerful? Why was it valuable? And that whole reflection process for me has been the most valuable.
Thank you so much. I think I've literally written so many things, and like, where do I even start about the takeaways out of that space? I'm like, thank you so much, David, for sharing all those things. And I think just like starting from the end and maybe working backwards, like that reflection part is like an integral part of the process. That's what we talked about actually. And like, you're my mentor in my Google Innovator Rare project, and I've been able to like ring you and be like, David, I'm going through this, but like, what's going on? Like, and you like walk me through my reflection process of like kind of like what's going on for you, why is it going on, what do you think about it, like. And that's such a great part to be able to like that. We've have in the very first session, someone talked about belief buddies, and like you have a belief in yourself, but also a belief in other people, and that's such a great thing to be able to have that and reflect on each other too. So yeah, Georgina, what's your kind of takeaways from that? What David so amazingly shared?
Yeah, so many. I really want to talk a little bit and celebrate David's point about storyboarding. And I really think that this is one area that is sometimes forgotten across all different curriculum subjects, not just in creation of video or blogging. A storyboard, if we add those visual images to help students to create written stories, right? Like in English class, for example, or in mathematical class when you're creating those equations or those problem solvings, storyboarding and gives it a logical sequential sequence. It gives you purpose, like David was talking about, taking you through that story. And I just think that's so powerful because we could actually do with seeing more of that across every curriculum subject. So David, I'm really glad you shared that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think like the PD part of it, because that's what like Keish said, I've noticed an increase in bite-sized PD that is easily digestible and personalized. I think that even you talk about the parent community that jumped on board is like parents want to know what's going on too, and sometimes it's just so big to be able to understand it. So actually putting those little spaces for them to be like, oh, okay, I get what you mean now, I understand. So it helps with that like relationships and partnerships in that space too.
Yeah, I made a video recently about unit planners and how when you read a unit plan, usually it's very difficult to comprehend everything holistically. But if you had a storyboard for that unit plan, it shows that journey as the student as the hero, and we are the facilitators, the mentors in that journey. If you have like a graphic of that, I think teachers will quickly understand the holistic or the essence of that story.
I think that's like it's so tangible for like both those spaces. Yeah, go ahead, Georgina.
I was just going to say, I think that's really powerful. You talk about like the student hero, and in education, we talk about student centricity, and that the student is the center of our entire why as an education organization, right? So I think that's really powerful. And I think that when we can visualize that, we talk about like the power of visual learning, right? And how that connects, and the importance of being able to connect to the representation of that image, and then that allows us to build on relationships, like you said, Naomi. So I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, I think the process piece, like people have said, like, oh, I'm this part of my YouTube journey, this part of my YouTube journey, this part of my blogging journey. I think like that process can be even like the storyboard and can be your starting point. Doesn't mean you have to be like all those wow different parts that you so amazingly fit together. But yeah, so it's like all different parts. Like the storyboard can be the starting part of you going towards that, and what does it look like as well. So yeah. Oh, thank you
David,
so much.
I have a question, if that's okay, guys, because I love learning from David. I know you were mentioning earlier about like helping students, right, to also explore becoming content creators. And I'd love to hear from your experience in your school. Like, have you had any success stories? I'm often seeing like student channels pop up that are becoming really big. How are you fostering that with your students? I'd love to learn from you.
Yeah, it's all only been it hasn't been part of the curriculum, and I think the goal next year is to have that. Actually, I'm working with a team to do something like that, where if that is your passion, we are going to facilitate that whole process, but at the same time hit standards. So I'm excited about that work, but so far it's only been passion projects. So they a teacher hears about a student who's interested and who has a channel, will then connect me with that student and would make videos and content, and I'll teach them the whole process that I go through, but in a more kids friendly way. But yeah, I can update you more next year, because I want that to happen with standards being hit. So
yeah,
I love that. Well, I followed all your channels this morning, so I'm looking forward to celebrating your journey and learning more about that. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Beautiful. Look at those connections happening, and like both of you have said about the spark as well. Like it's like that sparks interest, and then you mentioned about the spark in the future, and like it's just those little sparks and those little connections and those little pieces that come together is just so cool. And it actually goes back to I was saying the Edu Spark at the bottom. Like I'm so excited. We have Andrea, I think, in the session. Like it's some great stuff going on for Edu Spark coming out in the next couple of months. So really excited about that space. Sparking the interest and igniting the fires even more. So yeah, really, if you want to find out more about that, I think it's eduspark.world. I've put the link into that as well from what we're working on too. So talking about sparks. So I'll put up the next question for question 2. What tips and tricks or links do you have for EdTech and creating the digital space? So Georgina, what can you share your words of wisdom with us? And what do you have?
Yeah, actually, I thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. I'm going to start by sharing a little bit about my journey. So if it's okay, we'll pull up the slide deck just so I can share with everybody. Awesome. So I really want to talk about creativity and how different EdTech tools have empowered my creative leadership, and how that is also sparking our community of educators. And then that is like a ripple effect, and it sparks students in the classroom. And then they ripple back, and it's like a domino effect. And then what students are creating, that inspires educators. So it's that infinite loop of creativity and how that builds and empowers digital leaders across the 21st century. So I'm really excited to share a little bit about my story so that you can understand a little bit. So creative leadership, how do we start by taking our first step? So David shared his amazing process, and I know everybody said they're taking notes to start blogging and blogging, so that's great. This is a little bit about my journey. So I'm just going to click next here. Okay. I want you guys to think about that moment in your classroom when you're with your students, or if you're an instructional coach or a leader and you're with your educators and everybody's like, oh, aha, that aha moment, right? Or that of course moment. So this is an image of myself doing one of my live streams, which I'm going to talk about in a second, but you can see on my face, I managed to capture, watching the recording again, that, oh, wow. And this is the kind of spark that we want to create across our learning experiences with our students in the classroom, and also learning experiences with each other and with leaders back and forth, that whole loop, right? So how do we create that experience that creates that spark? So I just want you to keep that picture in your mind, or think about an experience when you've had that spark. So this is my creativity process, and it starts with the spark, the candle of curiosity. So we talked a lot about sparks today, But what does that mean? So we spark an idea, and David talked about the design thinking process, and we're all Google innovators on the call, and so we're very familiar with what that looks like. But the most important thing, in my humble opinion, is that it continues to iterate. It never stops iterating. We're always going back to improve and to redesign and reiterate and create better. So I talked about earlier, what I'm passionate about is helping education become better. We all are on this call in this entire EE Conquest. So that spark of candle curiosity is, how do we keep it burning from the really early age where students are like at an early childhood, they're naturally sparked, right? And they're curious and they're learning from the environment around them. So what happens as children get older through education, and why does that spark fizzle out? So my creativity process is, how do we continue building that spark vertically across the education curriculum? And it starts by creating. So as David already walked us through the importance of sharing your story, you need to find your why. Everybody does. And as educators, we have a responsibility to help our students find their why. So I really appreciated David saying about tying everything into standards, and I totally agree. But why not having the student add into what they'd like to learn? How would they like to learn? What are they curious about? So that whole idea of starting with meaningful questions that spark their curiosity to dive into the content that's related to the standards they need to achieve, and then sharing that story. So a little bit of the design thinking process there, collaborating with each other, creating, designing, iterating, reflect, share, and then repeat. So that's a little bit about my own creativity process that leads me really nicely here to a live stream that I do each week on Fridays, except for today because we had to spend so a week off. It's called EDU TGIF for Thank Goodness It's Friday. Here in the Middle East, our Friday and Saturday is our weekend. So I chose intentionally to do this live stream first thing early Friday morning after I finish working out to spark the rest of my weekend. So I choose creativity to start my weekend off on the right foot. And how am I going to grow through my weekend? That weekend is our time, right? To grow, to relax, to unwind. And so I choose to start it with creativity. So I know Naomi said she's going to share the deck out later. There's links to all of that. And I listed the main one there, but there are links in the slide deck you'll be able to connect. But as you can see, I'm on a mission. So it's just a little opportunity to share with you guys that I'm actually not a professional artist. I do use the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite to teach media, video as content creation, InDesign for magazines, and all of this we do. But I'm not an artist yet. And the power of yet is so important when we consider helping inspire our communities to blog, to vlog, to share their story. Because I'm sure, as some have already shared in the chat, it can be daunting. Oh, being on YouTube live, being on, creating a video that's sharing my voice out there. How do I start? So this live stream is all about my professional journey to learn, to lead by example, to show that educators don't need to be a professional in a certain content. Now, I'm not saying it's not good to be an expert. Obviously, we're all experts in our field, and that's really awesome. And we do, add to the conversation with our students. But you know what? It's also really important that we lead to show that we're not perfect, that we don't know everything. And when we can add that vulnerability to the piece to show students that we are learning with them, alongside them, that's really going to strengthen relationships. People often come into my virtual or in-person classrooms and say, wow, you and your students, you really have strong relationships and things are really connected. You've got a really great thing going on. And we do that because we learn together. So I think that piece is really important. So the last couple things, just before we open it up, I wanted to share about time and space. This is something recent, I'd say in the last, I'd say it's been brewing for a year, but specifically in the last 4 to 6 months as we come, hopefully, nearing the end of the pandemic, is how can we leverage curiosity, creativity in time and space to reimagine the professional learning landscape and also the educational landscape, you know? So a little bit about time. We all know here on the call, and I'm sure most, it's not news in the chat to those joining the session today, about flipping the learning. But why are we flipping the learning? What is the purpose? And are we enabling creation during that flipped learning? So is there a question that sparks curiosity that inspires them to want to create when they come to that collaborative space to learn together in their classrooms or as educators? So we want to plant the seed of curiosity, and that's done with inquiry-based questions, as David already shared earlier. Space is really, really very interesting. So we've got things now like Twitter Spaces, you know, obviously not necessarily that younger students are going to use exactly, but that idea of audio spaces, you know, we've just acquired a new free service for K-12 education called GatherTown. So when Naomi shares the link out, that'll all be embedded. And GatherTown is really cool because, have you heard of it, David? GatherTown? No, not yet. It's really cool. So it looks like a little bit Minecraft-ish, so it really appeals to younger learners, and they have little characters, avatars that they move around. But the space is divided into little rooms, and I think it's 8 seats at a table. So they enter a room, and the audio cuts off to just the people that have entered that room. And when you go out of the room into the hallway between other rooms, the sound gets dimmer and dimmer as you go away from other people. So it's like you're in a live space, and it's really, really amazing for things like, I've seen some amazing guided reading sessions happening, even with support staff hopping into GatherTown to then support different groups of students that are reading and having those conversations. So we think about blended learning. It's really important to mix the physical. We're in the phygital era now, right? As we move through the 21st century. So it's important to think about how are we taking the amazing traditional work, as David was talking about earlier, that has worked so well in education for years, and how are we then taking the silver linings from the pandemic and all these digital skills we've learned to actually foster something really magical? So that idea of choice, students being able to create through the 5 Ws. So time and space, I'd love to leave that with you guys. Does learning always have to happen during the hours and inside the walls of the classroom, whether that's virtual or in person, right? So this is the seed that I'd like to leave you guys with, everybody joining on the call as well. So we want to consider building student agency, and that happens through the creation process. Look at what David just shared through his YouTube process, right? All of those steps are creation that the students have done to achieve sharing their story in creative ways. So what do we need to do? We need to give choice, we need to give time, we need to give space. So I've written in the yellow part of this box here about fluid and negotiable deadlines. And I think that that's really important for us as educators and leaders to consider when we have lessons. In my lessons, when I ask students, okay, so we're doing this unit, an SDG unit, for example, and you're going to create a media campaign, I don't ask them, you need to finish that and hand it in by the end of the class. Why? Because as we probably all know on this call, that may not be enough time for all the learners in the class. So how are we giving them the space to allow their creativity to flow naturally? So we need to keep that in mind when we're designing our lessons as educators. So the last few points: be brave, take creative risks as educators and as a leader. Why can't you, join your teachers and share something new, whether that's playing basketball for the first time, whether that's crocheting for the first time? Why not? Imagine the relationships you'll build together. Remember to be vulnerable and learn from your students. Digital leaders at my school participate in staff CPL. So when we do carousels, teachers don't just learn from each other. We've empowered digital leader students at our school that teach the teachers how to use stuff. And it's really, really important. So be bold, share your message globally, because everybody's voice matters. I've shared some of the creative spaces where you can, if you're interested in diving into creativity, these are clickable. So when Naomi shares it out, you'll be able to click on those and take a look at the Adobe Creative Educator. Specifically, they've just teamed up with Khan Academy on the bottom right, and there's an entire course, 20-hour course where you can bite-sized videos, text, and then you can collaborate with people to learn how to teach about creativity. So yeah, just a few shares from me on that. And I think that's my last slide. Yeah.
Oh my
Thank you.
gosh. Oh my gosh. Both of you, I was like, what even are our takeaways from each of them? Because there's just so much stuff going on. Like, it's crazy. It's like so many takeaways from like what we can do. But I thought you said the word wrong, but fidgetal.
Oh.
I was like, oh, he didn't say the word wrong. He said it right.
I hope not.
No. Like fidgetal era. We're in the physical and digital space. That's so good. I was like, I get what she meant. I was like, oh, I wonder what that word was, but that's so cool. Like, but you're right. Like, it's a physical and digital space to actually move forward with, and so great to be able to share those takeaways. And again, it's going back to that spark and the candle of curiosity. Like, it's so cool to be able to do those things. And the daunting part, that's what me and David talked about a lot as well. Sometimes when people can see like this all coming together, or like David's videos coming together, or your like what you share in all those Adobe spaces as well coming together, you can forget sometimes that there's so much process and so much iterations and so much dauntingness. Even before me starting it today, I was like, breathe, whatever happens, it's gonna happen. Like, and I was scared and I was nervous and I was excited, but we have those feelings, but it's actually, like you say, taking that risk, taking that step, going forward. And even though we're feeling those things, it's okay to feel that, but it's actually taking the step forward and taking the risk is an important part of the process as well. So yeah, thank you so much. David, your little takeaways from that space too?
Yeah, in the beginning, immediately I connected with the curiosity part, the spark, and then you talked about live streaming. For me, a lot of my sparks that lead to curiosity and then inquiry is when I have conversations with people. So a lot of times when I'm in workshops or at conferences, I'm in a group and we have this discussion, and it's so powerful and so insightful. I'm taking notes, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, I wish we recorded that to get word for word what we're talking about. And live streaming seems like it would allow the individual to do that, to just talk it out and explain things. And that's kind of how all my topics for my videos appear in my head, is from discussions when I'm trying to explain to a teacher or my colleague what I'm trying to do, and I can't articulate it well, and it requires me to reflect on exactly what it is. And so yeah, I think live streaming and then just designing, having these breakout rooms on Zoom and is valuable, but to make it a more meaningful opportunity, and also a place where people actually want to share, like my experiences at the conferences, having students actually talk about what they're doing and then get those aha moments. I mean, that would be so beautiful to see.
Oh, it's beautiful. I think, like Celeste says, like, yes, Georgina, we totally learn together and have our adults bringing each other strengths and talents and gifts. I think, like then Ken after says, it's great to see you sharing your journey of learning. We ask our students to do that, and it's great to have the same, exactly like us walking through those live streams and sharing that little process, and then going through like the process you shared as well, David. It's so amazing to be able to like have this space. I think just taking the risk and taking the first step, and going towards the next part too. So yeah. Well, do you want, before we end the session, would you like to let people know where they can find you again? I know you mentioned it a little bit, but let people know where you can find you, all those amazing sessions, because like you said, we will be sharing the links and everything, but just let people know before we end the session too where they can find you. Georgina, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. So Techie Leader EDU on Twitter, and I'm also on Instagram at Redefine Ed. And you can find me in a bunch of different creative spaces, Behance, like I shared earlier, and EduSpark coming out soon. So eduspark.world, check that out. Yeah. And hopefully more with Naomi. So check out her space. If you guys haven't celebrated Naomi yet today, let's give her a round of applause for her amazing creations that she's doing, right? Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Thank you. And David, what would you like to share about you?
You can find me at davidleeedtech.org, and then that's my handle for pretty much every social media platform.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh, guys, can you believe it? we're moving on to the final, and it's the last session of the day. Oh my God. I can't even cope. I'm literally like, and I'm still standing, and we got this, and it's amazing. I'm so proud of everyone being involved, and all the people, especially in the chat as well, who have been getting the feeding our conversations through too. And I think some people can. I know it's been through a lot of the sessions. Andrew's been coming along with me. Celeste, Lua has been there since she's been on her session. Like Keisha was coming on as well before. Like so grateful. Adam's been there for a couple of sessions. It's so great to have like people going through all the different sessions with us too and part of the journey. So really, really grateful. A little reminder of people who haven't joined in yet or who are just joining in at the minute. Reminder of where you can find those sessions that we're talking about and where you can find the resources where you can talking about. bit.ly/EEConquest 2021. You can find all the resources that we talked about today. We're going to upload those over the next week or so. And there's going to actually be little badges for presenters and then attendees and everything as well that you can put away for what we're doing too. So, and if you want any of the resources that go along with the conquest, it's bit.ly/econquest guide. And remember, we are trying to raise money for Youthline. So if you can, it's been a completely free conference. We just want to try and raise money as much as we can for the mental health of people in New Zealand, Youthline. So bit.ly/EEYouthline. And if you'd like to subscribe and find out all the different information for Empathetic Educators, then press that subscribe button with lots of likes. We would love to hear from you. And I'm going to put the very last session coming up. Oh my gosh. How crazy is this? We're going to put on. So we're actually joining David and Georgina. We're going on for a quiz. I get to take the reins off being a host, and Ivo Hanan's going to come on along with Sophie Hunter, Anthony, and David Lee, obviously, and Georgina, and Craig Kemp as well. So we're part of a team, and we're going against Red Team, and we're going to try and win the end of this session. So I bet you Purple Team are going to win because I can feel this energy. I can feel us. We're going to win. If you'd like to join in with that, you can go onto the link EE Conquest, like it says on the thing, EE Conquest 14. You can come and join and see who is going to be our winner and end the day together. So yeah, I'm so excited and so proud and so happy to be part of this. I was going to take a little photograph of our last little bit of sessions and with the chat and us together, taking a photograph of each of the sessions. So 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Thank you so much. And team, come over and join our last Go Purple Team. Go Purple Team, Lua. Yeah, you're rooting for us coming out. And then Evo said, let's do this. And Lua says, Go Purple Team. So Red Team, you've got a little team debate over here. So yeah, excited to have you part of the conversation. So thank you so much. And we will see you later. Bye.